Shalom, all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushua, Ba'ashem Harakakadash, double honors to the apostles and elders, great most under rule well. Shalom to all the brothers doing the work of sharing truth. Um, there's yeah, so you had in the UK, happened like I think a few days back, maybe like a week at this point. The UK government basically request for Apple to put a backdoor into their encryption for iCloud, and you've now had it in the UK where, damn, that same encryption has been it's basically been removed as an option if you live in the UK. So it's on the Guardian. It says Apple removes advanced data protection tool in face of UK government request. Um, So it says Apple's taken the unprecedented step of removing its strongest data security tool from customers in the UK after the government demanded backdoor access to user data. UK users will no longer have access to the advanced data protection tool, which uses end-to-end encryption to allow only account holders to view items such as photos or documents that have been stored online in the iCloud storage service. So yeah, you basically have had as a standard for a while encryption, like end-to-end encryption. A lot of even with like your phone as well, it's basically encrypted to where if you can't unlock it yourself, like if you don't have the fingerprint or the face, whatever it is, for the face thingy that Apple uses, or the passcode, then essentially everything within a phone is encoded, and they make it so the encryption method they use is based on your personal like password and details, to where they then can't access it from their end. Like they would have to crack it like everyone else, and this has been it's been a thing for a while where they've been desirous of backdoors, and for other companies, other apps, other things, more likely than not, these things exist. These backdoors exist because even with well, they'll go into it. I'll read on a bit actually because they touch on a few things. So it says UK users no longer have access to advanced data protection, which uses end-to-end encryption to allow only account holders to view items such as photos or documents that they've stored online in the iCloud storage service. Apple said it was gravely disappointed they would no longer be able to offer the security feature to British customers after the UK government asked for the right to see the data. It said the removal of the tool would make users more vulnerable to data breaches from bad actors and other threats to customer privacy. It would also mean all data was accessible by Apple, which could share it with law enforcement if they had a warrant. So yeah, basically now it's all accessible. So you could have I don't know, screenshots of anything in there, pictures, documents, whatever. And then if in the UK they get a what do you call it, a warrant, then they can request and they have to give that data to them. Before, it'll be a thing where you might have to, you know, I think for your phone you'd probably still have to actually unlock it. But then the way they have that set up is in the UK is if you don't unlock your phone for law enforcement in certain situations, then you can basically be charged on the spot. Um, you know, depending on what legislation they're investigating you under. And there's a lot of these, and that's the thing is a lot of these different like caveats and rules have been put in place within what do you call it in place with what do you call it within the law, and now it's really coming together because this law they're using, because what does it say? So reading on it says earlier this month the Home Office served Apple request under the Investigatory Powers Act, which compels firms to provide information to law enforcement agencies. And I think, I don't know if it says it, but the Investigatory Powers Act isn't even new. It was passed a little while back, but it's just now they're basically trying to apply it where, okay, you want to function, you want to be utilized, you want to conduct business in Britain, then you have to be beholden to this law. And they said they will basically remove the protection rather than give a back door, which they've done. But then now it's basically the end result is what all that information is freed up. And the thing with iCloud as well is you'll have people where they'll have like they might have like a terabyte of like pictures. They might have like the last 10, 15 years of like pictures, videos, document, all these things on it, and they've paid money to get it. And then they're thinking like, shit. So now if I want it to, to be not accessible by the police, I'd have to move to some other service, and it's not practical. Or it might just be like because it's integrated with the iPhone they have or the iPad or whatever, they don't want to do it. But then now they're just fucked. And a lot of people won't even really hear about or care. They might just see like the option go away and be like, oh, well, I guess, or that's unfortunate or whatever, or they didn't really even know or care. But then with, with these powers being passed, then, it's more just lining up with like the beast system where you kind of have everything molded into that one system. It's all basically put within one big like bubble essentially, where it can all kind of be accessed and interact with one another. Where before you had like different parts of the government where they might have a separate file on you for one part and a separate file there. They had it all come together. It's like a lot of universal credit system in the UK was about that. And then now with these with these laws basically to put back doors, they could have it where it's like, okay, any of your data you have on different websites, on different locations online, we're basically going to be able to piece it all together. And the thing is like digital IDs feeds into that as well, because the digital ID thing's something they've been searching for a long time in the UK, and now it's finally coming in. They're saying it's just going to be driving, and I think just your driving license and one other thing for now. But then, with these different laws, they can tag more and more things onto like, your government ID, your government details, and piece it together. And it's the same. I remember it's like when we got arrested like years back, they said like, oh, when you get arrested, they did like retina scans and fingerprint scans, I believe. And then I was like, yo, how long are you gonna hold? Like, how long until you get rid of it? They said, oh, never. So they, you get arrested, you might not even get charged, and then they can just hold on to, your fingerprint, your finger, your whatever, forever, which just sounds like a fucking mess. But then, these, especially in the UK and like China, are the furthest along with a lot of these things, and you can see it's coming to a fullness. So what it say? After the change at 3 p.m. on Friday, new users had no access to the ADP tool, and existing users would need to disable the security feature at a later date. Messaging services like iCloud and FaceTime would remain end-to-end encrypted by default. Apple said, we are gravely disappointed that the protections provided by the ADP will not be available. And it's funny as well, because with like, what do you call it? TV show The Wire shows it well of how a lot of like criminal enterprises they got into them by having backdoor, well, essentially putting wires on different like mobile phones, on landlines back when people used them, public telephones and whatnot back when people used them, those kinds of things. Getting backdoors and going around circumventing privacy has been a thing for the longest anyway, with like how the government functions. And it's always like, oh, it's basically to what do you call it? It's basically something being done, for the greater protection, to stop a criminal enterprise or whatever. But then when you have it's funny because what was the film The Dark Knight? There was the whole story point with Was it Lucius Fox, where he made like the mobile phone where it could send out a sonar, and then that would basically give a scan of like where people are and whatnot within the building. And then he applied that to where other people's mobile phones could get connected up and then have the same feature to then get like a big scaled up map of everywhere. And then there was a whole issue of like, oh, it's a big problem about privacy and whatnot. Like, I can't, find myself being part of this because it's overcoming privacy. But then that's the thing is with all these different for it was for the sake of stopping like the Joker. So it's like, oh, the stakes are high enough. Then look, we have people have to surrender their privacy, and that's a big aspect of what's been pushed forward for a while, where they say, oh, if if you're a person you've not done anything wrong, you shouldn't have a problem with those things being out. But then really, it's about a matter of control, to where less and less things are going to be permitted outside of a certain bracket of behaviors. Because why? They essentially want you a certain bracket of behaviors. Because why? They want essentially compliance with the new world order. That's what they need. They they need people jumping on and happy to receive that mark. They basically need people compliant with the system. And a big part of of what showed that compliance is the jump shot. That basically highlighted a bunch of people that weren't gonna be compliant, then a bunch of people that were, and then the intensity of how much pressure needed to be applied for them to comply. Because some, it was as soon as it was out, the fear just got them and they got it. There was some where it was like, okay, you're gonna lose your job, and then bang, you get. Although people where it might have been like, okay, not lose their job, not this, but if they can't go out and do certain things, then that'll be it. If they can't go on holiday, okay, that's the breaking point. And these things all link together, man. And that's why you see one aspect of it working, one other aspect of it working. This is yet another piece of it, especially in the UK. And the UK's been pushing the most with linking your online ID to your like actual real name and whatnot. They were saying, oh, online cyberbullying and whatnot, online trolling, blah blah blah. They were saying Twitter needs to release like the names and emails and whatnot of the people who are doing these things, just so we can stop people getting bullied and harassed online. But then the funny thing is with, what was it, in Brazil, that's where they had it, where certain people with opinions contrary to the government, they'll go into Twitter and saying like, hey, ban these accounts. And then Twitter didn't want to comply, and now they're trying to get them to pay. Because why? That's a whole. It's all about control, and that's the thing is Fox in Brazil, as far as for what the elites are trying to establish. It's more about establishing Elon presently, because he's pushing forward a lot of the desires of the elites. And funny enough, he's kind of got the minds of these anti deep staters, let's call it anti deep staters, let's call them, where they're now compliant with Trump, with the government, because they think, oh yeah, he's working against a deep state, they're trying to stop Elon, but he's doing no, he's doing as he's told, he's following instructions, he's doing his job. And that's the reality of it. It says, what Apple said, we are gravely disappointed that protections provided by ADP will not be available to our customers in the UK, given the continuing rise of data breaches and other threats to customer privacy. And yeah, you could have like that. I think there's already been like iCloud hacks. I think a big part of why they have that encryption is because you had the huge iCloud hacks before, where you had a bunch of like images of like all the fucking nudes of celebrities and shit getting leaked, all kinds of pictures going out, and what you call it here, all those things basically going out, and that was a huge PR disaster. So That's really why they've like beefed it up. But then the reality is these things. It's like with a blockchain. It's creating a framework, a skeleton, so that then it can basically be applied, transplanted onto that C hip, man. I'll read this. Revelation 12:12. It says, "Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that ye have but a short time." And that's really it. That's the heat turning up. That's really what we're seeing with this legislation being passed, and then Apple's hand being forced. Because if they didn't comply, then what, they could be fined, the operations could be stopped, and then everything. And ultimately, these guys are about money, so they'll comply before being like, oh no, for the goodness of, they'll say all the blah blah blah. But and anyway, down the line, all this is going to be fluff. Because why? It's given a high enough level of crisis, they can then justify, look, okay, we can't have these security features because there's too many dangers. We need to be able to search through and filter through these different thingies. Just looking for troublemakers. We're not, making it seem like it's being done for a righteous good. But then what? Nah, it's really for their agendas, their desires. But yeah, I'll leave it there. Shalom. Shalom.